Thank you, Jimmy. It's really a pleasure to have Arthrex in South Carolina, part of this bio family, SC Bio family, and part of the infrastructure of South Carolina. So today it's my pleasure to facilitate this panel. And I don't know how I got so lucky, but I have the best panel, there's no question, and I know you're going to enjoy this. There have been a lot of references today to the COVID pandemic. And when I come from the hospital community, and when we looked back at the influenza pandemic of 1918, we saw a lot of public health lessons that we could draw from and learn as we responded to this pandemic. But we didn't see enough solutions and answers from the past because the world has changed so much in the last 100 years. And so there were many, many new challenges. And there were many new questions, and there were many new opportunities to solve problems. And as a result, we saw a lot of new collaboration, and that's really been exciting to watch new conversations turn into these collaborations. My own organization, the South Carolina Hospital Association, has had new collaborations with old partners, like DHEC and the Medical University of South Carolina. We had to learn how to do testing at a statewide scale and vaccinations at a statewide scale. But we also have new collaborations and new friends with organizations we'd never really worked with. So Nephron, Lou's company, helped us find saline and hand sanitizers and rapid tests. And we worked with the South Carolina Manufacturing Extension Partnership to find PPE when that was such a crisis. So we've lived these opportunities for collaboration, and we've witnessed a lot more. So our research universities have collaborated greatly among each other, or with each other, but also with industry. And we want to talk about some of those examples today. So you've heard them introduced. We've seen Clemson and Nephron collaborate. We've seen Nephron and Zverse collaborate. We've seen Clemson and Rymedi collaborate. And we want to talk a little bit about these examples of collaboration and the magic that happens when partners get together and think of current challenges in a new light. So let me start there and ask all of our panelists, if you would, just tell us what this whole, what happened in the pandemic and how partnerships and collaboration helped your organization thrive in a difficult period. Lou, I'll start with you.
Well, we were fortunate to have this network, and we started there. The help that we got from Shields, from John at Zverse, all the way to helping source bags through companies for IV bags when they were in short supply. We worked with the University of South Carolina on a syringe filling robot. That was another collaboration that was ongoing during that time. But frankly, I didn't hesitate to ask anybody for anything that we needed. And it was great, like when you ask us about hand sanitizer, I never intended to be in the hand sanitizer business or learn the EUA process, but we did it. And you would find this crazy. We couldn't find alcohol. And so believe it or not, one of our gals' dad's a farmer, and we were able to source alcohol through an agricultural channel versus our normal channels for medications and other excipients and things. So I would say there are countless collaborations with all the schools and with the companies around the state.
Thanks, Lou. John?
Yeah, well, I think that the pandemic was really interesting because you had never before in history where you had so many problems that had to be solved all at one time. And to solve those problems, everyone was searching for the same things. For us, in the early stage of it, we just got a call from the chief financial officer at Lexington Medical at like 9 o'clock at night, which I knew was a problem. They wanted something that didn't exist. They needed tens of thousands of units of that thing, and they needed it in just a matter of days. All the rules kind of went out the door, so I created for ourselves a sort of delta force of people that could help. And I would send out emails of, I need injection molders, I need polycarbonate suppliers, I need pricing on a plane to get to some place where you can't fly right now. And it was amazing to see how everyone sort of marshaled around that in doing that effort.
President Clements.
All right, thank you, Thornton. And first, thank you for leading this discussion. I also want to thank James Chappell for his leadership of SC Bio. I do want to claim him as a Clemson grad.
Absolutely.
And he is doing a great job. I'm honored to be here with these amazing panelists who are dear friends and critical to Clemson's success. So Thornton, you've been involved with Clemson for a long time. Partnerships always has been in our DNA. If you go back even like CUI car, when we built that, the partners BMW, Michelin, Volvo, what we're doing here in North Charleston at Curie with Duke Energy and GE and others. So it's part of our DNA. We always want to work together to achieve a greater goal. What the pandemic highlighted and amplified was the need for critical partners with a sense of urgency. If it wasn't for Rymedi and Nephron, we wouldn't have been able to keep the university open. So these two have been critical to our success, and basically I have one speed dial. And we use them a lot in the beginning to help guide us and put us on the right path to where we were kind of viewed as what we did as best in class. But you can't do those kind of things without great people internally, like our faculty and staff, who have just done a stellar job, but also the external partners who stepped up for us in a big way and also quickly.
You made the comment about speed dial. A lot of our hospitals have people on speed dial in the state government that they never had before. The relationships go from formal to personal and casual, and that's really made a lot more speed of partnership.
Absolutely.
David.
Yeah, and for us, being an early stage growth company, for us, we started in Mongolia tracking Hep C disease eradication, then we were in Kenya, and we have capabilities in doing that globally. What was exciting is part of Jim's staff reached out and says, hey, you can do it overseas, can you do it here in South Carolina? And literally, I got that speed dial call at 9 o'clock in the morning. We were testing the first 1,400 students on Friday, and then over the course of the pandemic, it went beyond Clemson to the faculty, the community testing. The impact, the day I got a call from the sheriff that said, the line is down the highway to the next county, Dave, can you guys go faster? We're doing 10,000 a day, but we can go faster. But it was bringing all those capabilities from those different areas and not having a fear of reaching out to folks. Even if it was 3 steps to a relationship, that whole South Carolina ecosystem pulled together. And when you hear that Dr. Burke's recognized best in class and then Clemson's getting recognized as one of the most aggressive, well-managed pandemic programs in the country, it's putting a spotlight on the Southeast that I don't think has seen for a long time. And that's just rippling across the nation right now from best in breed.
And Thornton, we went big with our partners. We bet big on them.
Yeah.
And they delivered in a big way.
They have.
Did not let us down once. They were always there to help us, and they guided us through the process.
That's great. Lou, you want to
Yeah, I want to add something. This is a story that'll warm your heart. We couldn't find swabs early on, and this was before we developed our own viral transport medium. We also needed a drug, the raw materials, the powder, to come out of India called rocuronium. We couldn't get it. Everything was shut down. That plant was shut down. Our partners at UPS, our guys right here in Greenville, South Carolina, he contacted UPS India. They met the plant manager. The plant manager rolled out the powder and got it through the port somehow when nothing else could so that we could continue to make, and that was a very heavily used product early on. And those were the kinds of things, like I called Pat Cawley and said, how hard is it really to get a CLIA certification? And he goes, the scientists are going to tell you how hard it is, just do it. And it was 3 days later, Dr. Bell and the people at DHEC were wonderful. They gave us positive controls without batting an eye. I called my friend Cynthia, Dean of the School of Science, and said,
She's amazing.
She is amazing. And I asked, can you and Delphine help me figure some of this out? And we really did collaborate between MUSC, South Carolina, and Clemson, all of us working on that saliva test we heard about this morning. That's the power of South Carolina.
Right. You all gave a great testimonial there to the relationships. How do you do that if you don't know a person to call, you haven't built that relationship in the past? So great setup. I want to subdivide this now into 2 conversations because they're 2 different partnerships we want to focus on. The first one is between Nephron and Zverse. And during this pandemic, you all came up with a new product. You actually built a new product and you're unveiling it now, and it's on our lanyards, those of us who are attending the conference. And that is Rymedi. So tell us a little bit, if you would, how that came into being, would you?
Well, sure. Well, first, there was actually 2 collaborations that we had. And Lou and I became friends during the pandemic because of the work that we were doing with the Z Shield, that pivot, and she became, an amazing supporter of us, the company, and me personally. And she's just, I don't have to tell anyone in here. I mean, she's just a dynamo, and it's just an inspiration just being around. And so we became friends and spending some time at Nephron's office, and we were getting a lot of questions or requests to build, design and produce all sorts of stuff, right, to solve all these different problems beyond the shields. And our first collaboration happened because we, in classic fashion over at Nephron, we show up for a meeting in the conference room, and there was another meeting going on. We sit down with this group of people, and we showed this one thing we were working on, and they said, wait a minute, this may have some application to something else related to respiratory therapies. I'll let Lou talk about that if she wants. But that was our first actual collaboration, was actually on a device and for designing and then producing a device in which we've manufactured some already. But during the pandemic, for us, we've always been a software and services business, and we've specialized in converting and helping digital transformation for manufacturers for years. And in 2020, we began working on this new software product, which is Rymedi, in which we're soft launching today. And what Rymedi is a collaboration tool to bridge the gap between engineers and non-engineer stakeholders within any organization. And like we always say that everyone is a designer. You may not know that, but everyone is. I've watched Lou give amazing design feedback on something. She wouldn't call herself a designer. I wouldn't call myself a designer, but I've designed a lot of products as well. And so Rymedi is really meant to be a bridge between those, between everyone in the organization to be able to contribute. And we have worked in, this past year, Nephron became our first beta customer for Rymedi. We worked very closely with Rami Herrick, who's Chief Manufacturing Officer at Nephron and also Associate Professor of Mechanical Engineering at USC on this. And last week, as a matter of fact, Rami began using it to teach his class, master's class of engineering students at USC. And Nephron will be using it for potentially many applications.
All right, so Lou, tell us from your perspective, there are always multiple sides that make up a story. Tell us how it happened from your perspective.
Well, even if I don't know you, and I know you have a certain type of expertise, I'm certainly not shy, so I will ask for
What?
help.
What?
So, anyway, John was over for a meeting, and I said, oh, wow, it's been a problem in hospitals. We don't want to give nebulizer treatments because if a person coughs after they breathe the nebulizer, it might spray droplets. So we devised a mask that you attach the nebulizer to. It was an idea, just like, wait, maybe John could make this. And so they started the design and the revisions, and so that just worked from there. You've been kind enough to let me talk to folks throughout the hospital association to see, is this a viable alternative to be able to do nebulizer treatments? So again, spreading, across South Carolina. And now we decided just today that we are going to use Rymedi for the design of the nitrile gloves that we're launching next quarter as a way for us to talk between here and Korea and some of the other stakeholders and just do it in real time with the software.
So how is it going to work? From you as a user, why are you buying this? What do you envision happening?
Well, I'm going to do my best. This thing is cool. It has like a chat site. You can put emojis like thumbs up, thumbs down. You don't have to, know the thermodynamic equation to be able to use it. It's a software tool where I can in real time see that John has rounded the edge and he's added a hinge here, whatever you're trying to design. And I can make comments just the same as the engineer might be making very specific technical So in real time, in his office and my office, we can have I don't have a lot of time, here's a thumbs up, or change this specific thing.
Okay, so,
Did I do okay?
yeah, that's great. So we all know that there's been a lot more remote work. So this challenge of getting people linked up and communicating in real time is part of what you're trying to tackle, right? So seamless knowledge transfer, I heard you talk about that, John. Tell us about how that is addressed by this new product.
Yeah, great job explaining that, Lou, by the way. So one of the things that the pandemic has also done is created, a lot of solutions, or the need for a lot of other solutions of how we work. There's some real big macro trends that are out there today that's really informing Rymedi specifically. One of those is digital transformation, particularly in manufacturing. Everything that we make, that you even see in here, from a vial to the machine that makes that vial to the building that houses that vial, or glove factory or whatever. All of that starts with a concept, an idea, and then goes to a sketch, to then a 3D file, which is key. That's the center of everything in digital transformation, right? And then it turns into hundreds, if not thousands, of iterations on that 3D file. And all the while, you've got maybe non-engineering people who are giving that feedback to it. And so that's number one, digital transformation. Secondly is remote work. We're now on distributed teams more and more. We don't, you may not have even met the people that you work with in person for the last year and a half, right? You don't know. There may be more turnover sometimes. And so this knowledge transfer is not as easy as it used to be, where we're all just huddled up in a room and can talk about something, or you get something in a hallway. So, if Lou has an idea just walking down the hall, if the team's remote, or there's not, or the external team's even remote, it's very difficult to kind of, relay that information. So that's another big challenge. The other thing, the macro trend that we see today, is people entering in the workforce today are Gen Z. And I have two daughters, 15 and 13-year-old, and I watch how they interact with, they think TikTok is TV. They do, if a video is longer than 30 seconds or, a minute and a half, then that's a series, right? And so that's how we communicate. But when product development, and we've done so much product development as everyone in here, there's so much time spent in knowledge transfer and wasted on people who are really talented within your organization. And what we look to achieve with Rymedi is a flow state. Many of you may have read a book that came out in the 90s by a Hungarian psychologist about achieving this flow state. And basically that means where you're at your highest level of creativity is when everything else is removed. You don't have these different barriers. And in athletics, you might call it the zone. For an organization, we want to achieve that flow state, which everyone in here did during the pandemic, right? You were calling on people that you may not have called on before. You were reaching who may be 3 people away from you, right? There were no barriers. And with Rymedi, that's what we hope to achieve, is to help every organization remove these barriers of email and slides and everything else in their product development journey.
All right, this product is, you said you're soft launching it today. Is it available in the market now?
So it is available now for beta. And so right now we are introducing it here with a friendly group. Right. And our booth is down on the exhibit hall. And so we are directing everyone to come visit. We sign up for demos. And yes, we are accepting customers. We are just not wildly public with it yet. No press releases yet.
Well, that's great. Well, it's exciting to see that the collaboration birthed an idea and it's already come to market. It's ready to go. So thank you all for talking us through that experience. Now, let me switch back over to Jim and David. Jim, I've heard some of your staff say, man, we would not have resumed this normal footing as a university as quickly without our partners. You want to elaborate on that?
Absolutely, 100% true. So, Thornton, when the pandemic hit in the spring of 2020, I'm a computer scientist. First thing you do, you start collecting data and you try to figure out what's going on. As we went into the fall of 2020, universities around the country were shutting down, we're not going to open, our halls are closed, and many went online for the whole year. I'm like, I'm not going to do that. We have too many smart people at the university in this state. We're going to figure this out. So the first thing I did, you look inside. All right, what do I have inside? We have world-class talent, as you know. Delphine Dean and I spoke early on, and she said, I have a way where we can do this differently with saliva. And, I got a Martine LaBerge, I got a Corey Caldwell, I got a Leor Renner. I got brilliant people, from bioengineers to public health scientists to epidemiologists. So then you start looking, all right, what else do I need? So I have to look externally. We went to the state. They gave us money for a CLIA lab. We went to DHEC. They helped. We went to Lou. We're like, Lou, we need you. And I'm not kidding. We would talk on a Saturday night, on a Sunday night, and she would be like, whatever you need, we got you. Gave us a gift of a robot to help us with our testing early on. That was transformational. And all right, we've got the CLIA lab up and running. We've got a great way to do it that's better, faster, more effective. I got brilliant people inside. I got outside partners. There was one missing piece that we needed, and that was David and his team. So we bet big that they could deliver, that they could build the system to make it very usable, very secure, and to get the information to the students, faculty, and staff that were coming in and getting tested. And so the view was, we're not going to close the university. We're going to figure out how to do this.
Jim, what was the task? You said it was a big task. You were going to test a lot of students and staff?
Well,
Is
I
that
don't know,
what it
David.
was?
We were testing at one point as many as like 10,000 a day. At the peak of the pandemic, Thornton, when it was raging, and we were getting the results back within 24 hours, sometimes within 3 hours. So I'm like, this is so anyway, we found a way to keep the campus safe. We opened it up to the community, so people in the surrounding community could also get tested and go on and live their lives. But Thornton, without these partners, it doesn't happen. And without the brilliant people inside of Clemson that, hey, look, I don't have that level of expertise. So I turned to the 5 stars I have around me, and we got a whole bunch of them.
And you aren't just bragging here. You got a lot of recognition from some high sources, right?
We did, and I appreciate that. We did. So the White House pointed us out as they had 3 universities they featured as best in class of how to navigate the pandemic, and we actually presented first. And they kind of viewed us as leading the nation in what we did, not only with the dashboard and how we reported everything in an open and transparent way, but how we navigated everything related to the pandemic. But again, you can't do it without the state helped us with financial resources, DHEC helped us, Nephron helped us, Rymedi helped us, and thank God we had great people inside of Clemson that would do anything to help.
So Jim, I remember at one time you were testing so many people that the number of positives was higher than in some places because they weren't testing like that. You had to contend with that, didn't you?
Yeah, we did. So we got the chatter of, hey, there's a lot of positive cases at Clemson. Yeah, because we were testing. But the thing was, then we could quickly isolate those who had COVID and keep the campus safe.
That's great. That's the way that should be done.
Exactly.
Find them and intervene.
And Thornton, it was amazing. I mean, students, faculty, and staff could go through. They get tested within like a minute. You walk through, you spit in a little vial, you pass it off, you get your results back in a couple hours. And it was transformationally best in class in the nation.
And obviously, as all of us know, it's a lot more comfortable to spit in a vial than it is to have your nose reamed out.
First time I had that
times.
done, the nose one early on before we had the saliva. It's extremely painful, as you know, and I had to wait 5 days to get my results.
Yeah.
Here, it takes 1 minute and you get your results in 3 hours.
Yeah, that was great. All right, David, your perspective on this. The president calls you.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing because we started laying out the digital workflow of how to do mass countrywide testing programs for disease eradication, malaria, Hep C, tuberculosis, HPV. So we support 2,200 tests that all support disease eradication and wellness in market. So that mindset of, everyone has an inalienable right for wellness is really what spawned the company when Dr. Cross and I founded it in these emerging markets. So literally we took innovation from the emerging market and brought it to the US market. And then we got the call, we were up and running, and then we thought bringing a technology capability to market is one thing, but bringing a solution to a problem is the key point. So when we were working with them, we worked closely with Delphine in the lab of how to process efficiently with what they had. More importantly, you've got testing, you've got digital platforms for visibility, but then you also have personnel. So we contacted a nursing program, so a lot of the people that were pulling samples were nursing students. We continue to do that today. I think we have like 64 nursing students that are doing sampling for us at any given time. And then we started treating it as a community. Then others started contacting us, how do we do it? How do we reproduce? So the best in class practice that we did at Clemson, I'm proud to say we're running in 48 states around the country right now. I'm integrated with every state for automatic testing for reporting. And it all goes back to if you have a pregnancy test, it affects you. If you're virally hot, it affects the community. And there's so many different diseases out there that the states and different agencies need to be informed about. And then taking that part, and now we've seen it even go further where a lot of the communities and a lot of people in market today are going to Med 360s. They're doing over-the-counter solutions. They're doing self-testing before they go into the traditional healthcare. Now we have a way to take this distributed approach towards distributed medicine into the traditional thing when they realize they need to escalate. So we continue to expand that core process and that core digital workflow with that never-ending mindset that says, I don't care where we are. And I have 4 daughters. I know how daughters are. But the child that I saw in Mongolia, and I don't speak Mongolian, I could tell that she was scared for her parents. And I remember that look. And I was stopped on a plane, and I had my Rymedi mask on. And a woman stopped me and said, I'm not sure what you do with that company, but I know my daughter's safe when she goes to school, and whoever you can, pass that message on. And that's what this room is filled with in infinite amounts. That desire to why we do what we do is that look from somebody that says, thanks, I didn't know what else to do. And that's what we've done.
Yeah, and Thornton, let me add, so I said earlier on, we had to act with a sense of urgency. And again, my teammates, they would respond at Sunday at 11 o'clock if you called them, p.m. And so we took an enterprise level view of these partnerships. How do we really make this work for the entire enterprise? But it was more than just the short term, how do we get through the current situation, but the long-term partnership that benefits our faculty, staff, and students. I mean, you've got students working in our labs. They're hiring them as interns. They're giving them great jobs because they have great knowledge when they graduate. So it's more than just the short term, hey, I need you, let's work together. It's how do we continue to be great partners? Because something else is going to come, and we got research opportunities. We've got great opportunities for faculty, staff, and students for jobs and internships, and to advance this state in terms of economic prosperity, you need partners to do that.
No question. Lou?
I just wanted to say, and all of that with speed, I mean, we were able to convince Thermo Fisher to get us molecular biology equipment in a week. I mean, in a week. And this was when everybody was, beefing up their system. And so we built that lab in 3 weeks. We staffed it. I called, for example, the universities, College of Charleston, all of them. Who's got molecular biologist students? I need help, and I need round the clock because we're testing 24 hours a day. And that's what I mean, all of this was like, doing surgery, running a marathon. Everything was so fast. And I have to say, on behalf of all the schools, like we helped Coastal with one of those robots, and USC, we bought one. Everybody was moving so quickly, and you don't normally see the universities get everybody manned up and going like that fast. And I saw it all across the state in breakneck speed, and it was a real testament to how hard everybody was working.
So one of the things we're trying to do is how can we learn from this?
Yeah.
So how do we just get better and better and better with our industry partners to serve the state and the students? So we created an industry advisory board of which David and Lou sit on, and I'm very thankful because they're unbelievably busy, but they give of their time, several meetings a year and provide us with great input, Thornton, on how do we move forward together for the good of the state. And it's been incredibly beneficial just so we can get better and better and be more intentional about listening to our partners and to serve this region.
So
How we get great employees. I mean, we're giving our input so that the school knows these are the kinds of folks we need to hire. And you heard the stats this morning. These are high-paying jobs. They're well above the median income here in South Carolina. And we need that help. And we hire the interns, and then we try to turn them as quickly as we can into employees as soon as they graduate. I mean, we have at least 100 interns every summer, and probably 50 or so around the school year, including even the governor's school with teenage interns. All of that is helping us to solve the workforce issues that we heard about this morning.
Well, I'm going to come back to several of those points. David, did you have a comment?
Yeah, and giving back to the community a bit, what also has happened is Dr. Cross and I have been asked to speak at certain entrepreneurial things. We gave a guest lecture at Clemson. We spoke at the Next. They hear the Rymedi name and they think we're a company that's only been around a couple years, and they like to hear the story of how you went from idea and concept and went through and all those challenges, and you're walking through. So we keep finding those opportunities, and people are seeing coming out of the pandemic that speed and agility and successful businesses can be created. And there's folks that are super successful in this room, but those are the same folks that take a few minutes. And I've seen it on the industry advisory board. I've seen it across the state. It doesn't exist everywhere, and it's in a unique ecosystem. We moved our company from another state, and I won't mention where, but we moved it to South Carolina because of the ecosystem, and we wanted to be part of the community, not an early stage company that didn't go out and raise $100 million, and we'll leave it at Research Triangle Park. But anyways, those are those things. But that embodiment that is here is unique, and that is why we're here. That's why we continue to want to grow here. And you know, when you work with Rymedi and you work with us, we have people that move into Greenville, they're moving to the area because it's just infectious. It's that je ne sais quoi that allows great things to happen in the Southeast. And I really feel like we're that drop in the pond and the ripples. I say the Southeast is anything south of DC, east of New Mexico. That's my turf. I want to own the digital health market in that space. But you know, that mindset continues to convey across all of it.
Okay, well, there's several things I want to mine here, several ideas, but you're on workforce. You talked about it, Jim. You're building the workforce of the future. We're all recruiting. We're looking for them. You're talking about the culture and the kind of the community we have here. What were some of the challenges of workforce for you? You're running 24/7. You're calling people at 11 o'clock at night like I was. I mean, it strained our workforce. Have we come out of that? What are our challenges going forward? Lou, you're constantly hiring as you bring on different things. What are the implications in the collaboration for our workforce development? What are we going to do differently as a result of this?
Well, I mean, we have a lot of really unorthodox, creative approaches to solving labor issues. I had an epiphany about, 10 or 11 weeks ago that if we would be flexible about when people could come to work, think Uber, that we could get more people through the door to do the entry-level tasks that we needed. So I said, work any day, any hour, any week. You can work 1 hour, you can work 30 hours. Just come on in. And it's hard, it's difficult to do that, managing and all the moving parts. But we've hired 3,300 people in the last 10 or 11 weeks, and it solved our problem. Now, from that, we're mining as if it's a whole recruiting effort. We've probably made offers to 25 or 30 for full-time to stay. And there were people that never thought about working in a pharma company. They thought, oh, I'd have to be a chemist or an engineer or a microbiologist. And so we have so many different disciplines and needs on the hiring side that we've identified good people just by thinking more like an Uber setup. I'm even implementing that you can come work for 4 hours and you need that beer money tomorrow night. You can get paid at the end of your shift. It goes right into your account. So I was able to do a whole competition between the fraternities and sororities by saying, whoever comes in the most, I'll donate $5,000 to their sorority or fraternity. Whoever recruits the most. I just think you have to get crazy and creative, and I'm happy to do that. And it's turned out so many other unintended great consequences in hiring practice, and I never would have thought about that.
So do you intend to continue that uber flexible kind of come in anytime you want?
Until I can automate some more things, I have no choice. We have been fortunate enough to have Voc rehab students coming in. We are doing a partnership with Lindsey Graham's sister with the Commission for the Blind. We are working with hearing impaired folks. We even have a program where we have inmates in Bishopville helping us with test kits. And that means the at-home test kits. We put together about 125,000 a day, or in a 24-hour period, and those are being shipped all over the world. And we are using those very creative ways to get it done, which allows us to give back to the community. It allows people to have opportunities to do things. We've got an autism group. I mean, it's really heartwarming to see.
David, do you have a comment about that?
For us, we looked at how to be creative about how to bring people in. So there's some pieces we've been looking at, augmenting student loans. We brought tons of interns in. I was hiring pretty much out of Duke and UNC biomedical engineers. And it was great. I sat down with the industry advisory board and Jim, and we sat down with Anand, and we said, here's a course curriculum. If you come out of Clemson, that I'll hire you. And it was great because I heard a similar program is being done by Arthrax. And they're on the medical device side, I'm on the digital therapeutic side. So I spoke with Dennis and I said, hey, if we put an intern there for 3 months, then they work with Rymedi for 3 months, that's a high value resource that could stay in South Carolina, because both sides of the industry becomes incredibly powerful. And I mean, I'm an early stage company. And knowing that Arthraxes take time and Lou takes time and other folks, they see potential and they see innovation that we can accelerate the market, because we're just not scared of trying what may work versus thinking it's not going to happen. And I think those ideas across the board have been great.
Right.
And I'll jump in if I can, only because you mentioned Arthrax, and I was literally getting ready to mention them. So that's another dear, great partner of ours. We just saw Reinhold Schmieding on the video. So they moved, they didn't move, but they set up a manufacturing facility here in this great state, because they wanted to be in a state that was competitive and aggressive, where people want to work and get things done, and they wanted to be near great universities. So I went down to Naples with my team. Angie Leidinger is here, one of my vice presidents for External Affairs and Government Relations, does a great job. We wwent down and visited Reinhold Schmieding a couple years ago in Naples with our team and his team. And we really just said, tell us what you need. You're coming into South Carolina, you need to hire lots of people. What can we do? And he said, well, college graduates that come out across the country are great and they're brilliant, but we have to train them here. You could help us if you build this kind of program. So we said, all right, we'll do it. And he literally wrote it out on a napkin. And we took it back to the campus. And again, great faculty made it happen. But he created.
I asked for a program too.
What's that?
I'm asking for a program too. Remember our regular.
You got to write it on a napkin, Lou, then we can make it happen. So anyway, we built a program for him, and then he created something called the Arthrax Scholars, so our students could learn and go right to work for Arthrax. It's a great partnership and a great win-win. And by the way, Lou is pushing us on a new academic program. She mentioned that at the last industry advisory board, so that is a true statement.
I can't imagine she's pushing anybody for anything.
So for every one of us in the room, all of us have regulatory challenges, and most of the talent that we utilize is in Washington. My contention is, let's create some regulatory scholars, if you will, and keep them here in this state to help us with submitting generic submissions or new drug applications, device submissions, and build that ecosystem. So yes, I did ask for my own program.
Yeah, I'm not sure you did. So Arthrax is paying it forward, Jim. When you went down and asked, how can we help? They just invited us down, the hospital community with James Chapel. We went down and they said, how can we help South Carolina now? Because we're part of this community. So this builds on itself.
And there's a win-win in there. And we went down last week to see Reinhold and his team, same kind of thing. We had a working dinner and then brainstormed the next day. What can we do to keep pushing this partnership for the good of this state? And again, when you get an Arthrax coming into the state, creating those kind of jobs with those kind of salaries, it's great for the economic prosperity of the state.
Yeah, that's great. So let me mine another idea here, and that is, you just mentioned regulatory. You all were trying to do a lot of things really fast that you were not normally doing. Did you run into a lot of barriers, or did the regulatory and accrediting bodies help you?
No, I'm going to tell you, the FDA, leaps and bounds. I mean, they were working, they were calling us, they would help you through the EUA process in days. It was an FDA like no other. We should be so very proud, because if we called for questions, or if they called us to say, do you see that, like Val Jensen will reach out to me that we heard from, and she'll say, do you feel like there's going to be a shortage in midazolam? We need so much midazolam, or we need so much. And I go, no, check on API, we're good. But they would say, if you need anything, help with sourcing other things, just what she said this morning. So it was also a great collaboration. I was proud to be an American by watching that agency and what all they have done. And they show no signs of stopping. And think about, have you ever heard of getting a vaccine to market in less than a year? No. Clinical trials were done here in the state by MUSC and Steve Clements at Vitalink for Moderna, for AstraZeneca, and for Pfizer. I mean, right here in South Carolina, those trials are being done.
Right.
And so I feel like we, a little small state like ours, really did our part to help the country.
In fact, that was part of the problem, right, with the political pushback or the popular pushback. How can you build a vaccine in that period of time? People were skeptical because the science advanced so quickly. They weren't used to that. David?
Yeah, and one of the pieces for us is, so we've already filed with the FDA a master application filing, so I'm moving towards a digital therapeutic. Everything we store is real-world evidence admissible for virtual clinical trials, right? So we bring that product to market. One of our conversations with Clemson is, why are we not taking managing the pandemic is great, providing a safe environment for the students is great. Why is Clemson not publishing papers on real-world evidence virtual clinical trial submissions? So I know Delphine has done a few papers based on the data set that we captured. So we managed a problem, but we also built academic value off what we are doing in market. And by taking those approaches, there's many ways to extract value from doing the right thing. And we really explored those avenues. And then for us, interfacing with all the states, like working closely with South Carolina to make sure we're automating all the testing results and all that was great. It really became a boilerplate, and that's how we were able to accelerate through all the states, because people don't know how to do compliance. They're fearful they're going to get shut down if they do it wrong, and if we can digitize and automate that, it removes fear from market, but more importantly, it opens up the opportunity for innovation because they're not held back from the trepidations of failing on things that are in market, protect patients that are getting those treatments.
By the way, David, I always love you always push the academic side, which makes you a very cool partner. But you're always pushing the academic publications. I can tell you people like Delphine Dean, Leor Rennet, Martine LaBerge, they've got so many publications and research grants with their names on them, but this created yet more opportunities for them, more opportunities to publish, more research opportunities, more grant opportunities of which they're capitalizing on.
I think there's a collaborative opportunity. When I was practicing law years ago, I worked with a lot of institutional review boards to approve studies. But a lot of that has been consolidated in our state through a central IRB. I wonder if we couldn't do more centralized digital compliance, to help accelerate this. Wherever the road bumps are that's slowing it down, maybe we should be attacking that. Yeah. Lou, every time you look at me, you have a comment. You have something else you want to say?
You know her well.
Yeah, I would just say that the more we do with the students to tag team off of what David just said, the more we do with the students and allow them to be a part of a bigger solution, I think the greater chance we have keeping the talent in South Carolina. And I think, John does it a lot. He's, I had an intern that now works with John, and that's another great thing about this. If I don't have the next chemistry opening, but I know my colleague does, I'll send the resume over. We share. We're good about that here in the state.
There's another conversation that's evolving in a different setting, and I know about it because I'm on the board of the Student Loan Corporation. The South Carolina Student Loan Corporation is a state-based nonprofit. It is traditionally, when President Clements admits a student, that student goes and takes a loan to pay the bill, and when they graduate, they start paying it back. Then they search for a job. The conversation that's taking place is, why don't we connect employers to those students before they ever take out the loan and discuss whether the employer would forgive part of that educational cost if they follow through and become part of the team.
Done.
So much interest in that. It's really amazing because now, when we look at your nurses, Jim, and all the other nurses, a number of them leave the state. Well, if we've paid their education, they're staying with us. So I think there's a lot of creativity that comes from these new conversations.
I love that idea, and I love everything that you just said, and Lou jumping on and going, done, I'm in. Because she will be. We get about a third of our students from out of state, 2/3 from in-state, right. Undergrad. The ones that come from out of state, they want to stay, right. The majority of them, if they can find the right employer and the right place to live and work. And as we continue to build and grow this economy, there's lots of opportunities. I love, Thornton, what you just
framed. We'll keep trying to engage more partners. Let me go back.
Bring them to me first.
I'll bring them to you first. Okay. So here's a question for all of you, if you want. When I heard you describe, Jim, what your testing process was at Clemson, you really got it in a groove, and I know, Lou, you had yours in a groove. The state, when I watched it statewide, it was highly variable, organization and community to community. We need to take the best practices we learned and sit down with DHAC and MUSC and the Hospital Association. We were the partners that were required statutorily to do. We need to make sure that we harvest those lessons and say, if we ever do this again, we should strive to do it this way, not this way. So saliva versus or drive-through or not. Do you have thoughts about, have you had conversations about exporting your best practices to other settings?
I was talking to Cynthia and Delphine the first month or two, pretty regular basis, The same with the guys at Coastal, Dr. Buckhaltz at USC. All of us comparing and contrasting where you're getting your supplies, what kind of equipment are you using, do you have test methods already created, can we share that? Everybody dropped the mask out of the day and just started helping Team South Carolina. And I think that we've learned little by little lots of great lessons, how to get to, like we did all the testing for Glen Raven Mills and Anderson and their North Carolina site. We learned how to do drive to them testing. We learned how to test student athletes when they came to town. We learned a lot of things, and we never intended to be in the molecular biology business. Now it's led us that we've bought a whole bunch more equipment, we've expanded it, and we're going to start doing as many of the panels as we can for all our employees as a part of a new wellness center I'm putting together for employees and their families. So I probably couldn't have even defined molecular biology until this pandemic, right?
Right.
So a lot of lessons learned.
Yeah. Jim?
Thornton, I would just say, look, in higher ed, it's our job to share knowledge. And I get the opportunity to brag about my teammates, the great faculty and staff and partners that we have. But I can tell you, people like Delphine Dean and Martine LaBerge and others are called on by people across the country and across the world to provide advice. We were one of the first in the country to open up testing to the community. A lot of people then turned to us to say, how'd you do it? What'd you do? So we've been a good resource across the nation. But again, it's not me. It's the smarter people that are in the room that are actually making the things happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Dave? And vaccine, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to your point, half of New York State runs on the same process we developed for Clemson right now. And that's almost been one of our frustrations, where in our own community, at times I'm having some challenges sharing that wealth, but other states that are seeing what's going on, they are gleaning on that. We operate, again, large movie studios, and there's just different organizations that want to provide safe workforce environments. They're finding lower insurance rates because they're taking a proactive approach to disease eradication in their own workforce. 44% of the CLIA lab market is in the Southeast. The largest concentration of CLIA labs is in Florida, right? All these places are learning what's going on, and they're starting to pick it up. I'm very grateful because our business is growing, but those best in breed practices are being cherry-picked outside of our state, again, bringing it in-state. I mean, the capabilities we have here, we could define the Southeast region. I have absolute faith because best in breed is right here. You just need to look around in this room and in our community, and everyone will step up because we want to be best in breed. And for us, always challenging and going up to Boston and running into folks everywhere. And I'm like, yeah, that Greenville, come on down. And then they start reading about us. So.
Well, that's really helpful. I'm going to try to get you all in a conversation with our partners at DHEC, because when DHEC has to stand up testing statewide, they don't do it themselves. They use contracts with many different, and so you've been tested in a lot of different settings. They do it different ways. It's different vendors. Maybe we should have a conversation about what is our aspiration? Which method do we want to use? Which systems do we want to use? And try to
Thornton, that's
be more
definitely a
intentional.
worthy discussion. Again, DHEC was really valuable to us, especially in the beginning. Governor McMaster was, the legislature, by helping us get our lab up and running. But the more we sit together and talk about best practices and how can we all get better together, that's a win for the state.
And we were contacted with Lindsay's office because Hep C is a real problem in rural South Carolina.
Right.
Right? It always sounds callous. We don't really care what the disease is. We can handle because the workflow is so similar. But taking care of Hep C problems here, Lafayette, Louisiana has a high concentration. So there's things happening in our rural communities where people have a right to wellness. We can take these and standardize these and impact 9 different disease states that are current in our ecosystem with one digitized workflow because it's unilateral and it'll solve all those.
Right.
So, from a Rymedi perspective, hey, Jad just signed us up. We're in. Just tell us what we need to do and where we'll be there, and we show up.
Yeah.
So I'm in.
Well, DHEC helped all of us early on. We need to turn around and tell them everything we learned and help them try to develop a strategic plan for how they're going to test in the future. So I'll put that on my to-do list. Let me ask, before we wrap up, do you have any final comments you want to throw out for the benefit of the group?
Thank you for allowing all of us to work together. And I hope during the networking session, you'll be able to meet your newest partnership or your newest collaboration, just like we've shared up here today.
That's great. Thanks. John?
Yeah, I'm feel very fortunate and appreciative of, everyone here and being able to participate in this. Certainly throughout this time, our relationship with Nephron has helped us immensely and not only from markets, but also from learning and everything else. And that's what this whole event's about.
Great. Thanks. Gentlemen?
Thornton, I would just say first, thank you for running this panel. I think it's been a good discussion, and very thankful for SC Bio and all that James and his team, all that they do. You said it, Thornton, when we all sit down together, you take people that are all doing really, really good things to find out how we can work together for the good of this state, provide the healthiest environment that we can, provide the greatest jobs that we can, help this state continue on a path to economic prosperity. It's all about teamwork. None of us can do it alone. We're all good by ourselves, but we're great when we're together.
Agreed. Thanks. David?
Yeah, and for Dr. Cross and myself, we've just been absolutely humbled. We've been in some interesting places around the world that are not tourist locations, and the look on a child's face when they're worried about their family and their own well-being is what motivates us. And they know that the compassion is so prevalent in the Southeast is just, it inspires us to keep working and keep going up every day. And we're just incredibly humbled to be a part of an ecosystem. And I think, as we continue to grow in South Carolina, we are the driving force that's going to put healthcare innovation across this country, and I firmly believe it, and that's why we're here.
Thank you. Thank all of you for being on this panel.